Hey guys, I'm Devin, this is Make Anything, and this is a really cool deer skull that I sculpted in virtual reality and printed out using Filamentum's mint green PLA filament. It looks super cool, and I definitely want to go through the process of how I made this in a future video. But today we're not going to talk about the print, but we're going to talk about the printer that it came from. Cool. So this is the JGAurora A5 3D printer, and I've been printing with these two machines for several months now, eagerly awaiting the moment that I can make this review, because I've got to say, in a lot of ways, this is my new favorite 3D printer. And it may sound bold, but I think it's the most underrated printer of 2018. Last year, we heard a lot about the CR10. You guys know I love the CR10. For the longest time, it was my most recommended printer. But I think this is going to take its place because the CR10 is great, and I also really like the Anycubic i3 Mega. The JGAurora A5, it's like if the CR10 and the Anycubic i3 Mega grew up together in the same neighborhood. They were best friends ever since they were children. They went to high school together, and then they graduated and went off to college in different states. Life went on. But then, 10 years later, at their high school reunion, they met up again. And they had an instant connection. They relived old memories, and then they decided to continue creating new memories together. Keep seeing each other. Soon their friendship became more than a friendship. They learned, lived, and loved together. After 7 years, they decided to get married. And then, not too long after, they decided to raise a child. A beautiful, beautiful little baby boy. And its name was the JGAurora A5 3D printer. I'm not kidding, this thing really has the best of both worlds. Like the CR10, it's got a nice big build volume, 305 by 305 by 320 millimeters. The printing mechanism is almost just like the CR10, more like the CR10S actually, because it has the two Z-axes. And then like the i3 Mega, it's got a nice rigid structure, it's super strong, it's super easy to put together. It comes in two parts that you just stack together and screw in. It takes like 10 minutes to put together. It's got this awesome build plate material. They call it a black diamond platform, but as far as I can tell, it's exactly the same as the i3 Mega's ultra base build plate, which is awesome. Everything sticks to it really well, and then as soon as the build plate cools down, the prints just pop right off. I really love that about it. And it's also really nice and flat, so you can print on the entire build volume and your print will stick down. Furthermore, it's got some really cool additional features that are just icing on the cake. It's got filament runout detection, it can recover from a power failure. That's something that most cheap printers won't have. And believe it or not, as we speak, this printer actually costs less than both the CR10 and the i3 Mega. I really love this printer, but I won't say it's perfect. Like a lot of printers out of China, the user interface can sometimes be a little weird. You kind of have to learn where different things are hidden inside of the menu, but once you know, you know. Otherwise, there are some small glitches. For example, when you use the filament loading command, if you don't start loading it immediately when the nozzle reaches the temperature, it sometimes just won't work. And then also, I noticed that if you try to change the temperature of the build plate or the nozzle while the print is just heating up at the beginning of a print, it'll just jump back to the original temperature. So if you're printing something and decide to change the material and want to print it with a hotter nozzle temperature, you might be better off just slicing it again with different settings rather than trying to change it on the printer. But those are just minor issues, and they could theoretically be fixed with a firmware update. The way that these printers are built is fantastic. The Extruder is surprisingly well built. It's very compact, but also super robust, and it has no problem grabbing any type of filament and feeding it through this really long Bowden extruder. I actually managed to print a lot of different materials on this printer. I printed my little half-penny board on this printer, and this is printed in CPE material. The A5 was able to reach that nozzle temperature of 250 degrees Celsius and a build plate of 100 degrees, no problem. And I also was able to print flexible filament, which I was really surprised because this is a really long Bowden tube, but it still managed to print really wonderfully with that flexible filament. I printed PTEG, of course PLA, I did some small ABS parts, I printed my mini Monstero plants with that poly smooth filament. So this thing seems to handle just about anything I throw at it. I did make 2 little modifications to the extruder here. For one thing, I added a knob that helps me manually feed in filament, which is really nice when the automatic command doesn't work like I mentioned. And I also added a little extension to this button here that lets you release the gear that's grabbing onto the filament. So that also lets you manually feed filament in or out. And those were basically the 2 hardware issues that I had with this printer. I was able to fix them. So now this thing is super solid. I'll put links to those little mods in the description so you could print those out first thing when you get this printer. Honestly, the prints speak for themselves. Everything came out beautifully. I really haven't had any major issues with any of the prints, and I've been printing a lot with these things. They're basically my default go-to printer right now. It's a great printer, and that's why I say it's underrated. Not that it's gotten bad reviews, but I'm just not hearing about it so much, despite how amazing it's been for me. And I've got 2 of them. They both worked great. Sure, if you want the extra 80 millimeters, you might want to get the CR10 or the CR10S. If you want it to be better for traveling, you might want the i3 Mega. Maybe if you want a really quiet printer, there's a different printer out there for you. But as far as just a general good beginner printer in that $300 to $500 range, so far, this is the best one I've come across. All right, that's all I've got to say about these printers. Full disclosure, these machines were sent to me by JGAurora themselves. But I'll tell you, if I was gonna buy a printer right now, this would probably be it. If you're sold, I'll put links in the description. GearBest always has really great prices, so I'll link to GearBest. I'll also link to Amazon if you're willing to pay a little bit more for quick shipping and easy returns. All right guys, that's it for now. Again, you can visit makeanything.design/favorites to see my list of pros and cons on several of the printers that I've tried. If my opinions change, I'll update that website. But for now, I love this printer. I love you guys. I'm Devin, this is Make Anything. Don't forget to stay inspired.